Mr. Transformers 96 here with another end of the year video. This time I'm going to do my ranking video for the Transformers Studio Series line. This is a new toy line that just started this year that I have really loved. I had a great time with this line. It's probably my favorite line that I'm collecting right now because they're going back and they're really righting wrongs of the past. They're doing all the figures that I've always wanted them to do. They're doing all the characters that I've always wanted them to do, and then they're taking the figures that we already had and just improving them and making them great, which is awesome. So I'm really just super excited about this series, and I wanted to make a video about them. This is, of course, considering this is the first year that they've done it, this is a new end of the year video for me. I don't typically do this. Even just for the regular Transformers series, I kind of just do a top 10 that encompasses all the figures, and I don't kind of separate them as much as this. So this I'm just doing on the Transformers Studio series, and instead of doing like a top 5 or a top 8 or top 10 or anything like that, I decided just to take all the Studio series figures that I purchased and put them into one video. Actually, I don't have the number right next to me, unfortunately, but I think that the about the number that I purchased this year was close to 15, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's actually 13. I think it's 13 figures, but I did purchase the majority of the Studio Series figures that were released. I didn't purchase them all, but I purchased all of the leaders. I purchased them all. The Voyagers, I purchased them all that are released at this time, and the only exception to that is the repainted Starscream because it's the same figure, so I didn't get that. And then as far as the deluxes go, I bought about 70% of the deluxes. So I bought the majority of the figures, so you'll see most of everybody on this list. And again, this is only for the 2018 releases. There are some figures that are slowly starting to come out. The Dropkick wave of deluxes are starting to come out, and Dropkick is on this list, but like the KSI drone is not on this list, that type of thing. So it's basically up to that point, and there are tons of new figures coming out next year, which I can't wait for. I totally will be purchasing them, and I'll probably do another video just like this at the end of next year. But there were some great figures here, and there were still some disappointing ones, even though this is the line that's supposed to fix all the wrongs of the past. There were still disappointing ones, but for the most part, we have had some great figures. And yeah, let's get started on the ranking. These are my personal preferences. I just wanted to preface this with. These are my personal preferences, so obviously, you know, don't be offended if you like a figure that I personally didn't like as much as you did or anything like that. But let's get started with my list ranking the Transformers Studio Series figures released from Hasbro in 2018. Last on my list, I'm going to have to put Shadow Raider. Figure-wise, it's decent, but it's kind of the cheap way in which it was released that makes me kind of want to put it low on the list. The only reason I bought it is for the new head and the new gun, because it's basically just a repaint of Lockdown, but with orange parts, which makes no sense. A lot of people claim that it's, you know, one of the drones on the ship, but it looks nothing like it. It's simply a repaint for the sake of selling the same toy over again, but with a couple new items that will entice people to actually buy it. So I'm not a fan of that. I think it's very cheap to do it that way, and very shady on Hasbro's part. Would have just liked them to come out with a figure that included the right accessories already, and Lockdown is a rather small figure. He should have been a Voyager anyway, so I just find this figure to be undersized as well, which is definitely disappointing. Taking that 12th spot, we have Dropkick from the Bumblebee movie. This one's just a really disappointing figure. It does not represent the figure or the character in the film whatsoever, which is really a shame, and it misses the mark just on all areas, from the proportions to the design, to the coloring, to the quality control. It fails in really every area. I would almost say that this is the worst one if it wasn't just for the cheap money grab that the Shadow Rider is. But this one is just a really fail of a figure, and I'm hoping that when I do my custom, it will improve the figure, but for now, it's quite disappointing, must say. Next up is the Voyager class Brawl. This figure has some good aspects to it. I really like some of the new design features. I love the head and how big it is, and his proportions are pretty good. My only issue, or my biggest issue, is some of the proportions around the arms. The arms are really flat at the end, and you're just supposed to have like multiple panels forming the arm, and it gives him a really weird boxy lower arm and a very thin upper arm. The only reason it looks pretty decent here is because I'm mistransforming it. I'm actually just flipping up the panel to fill up the top a lot better, but it's not actually connected to that top piece, and if you pose them, then it's thrown off. So it's just the perspective that you're seeing it here that it looks pretty good, but in person it's designed poorly in the arms, which is why it gets a low spot in this list, even though I'm a huge fan of the character.
Next up we have Blackout, who is my favorite Transformers character. Figure-wise, I was super excited for it, and I am happy to get it. It has some good things about it, like the last version of Blackout was so in desperate need of an update, and this fixes a lot of the issues proportion-wise, it really does. My only issues with it are some of the aspects of the feet are very boxy, the hands are completely inaccurate, they're very annoying, they look stupid. These look nice because I'm using custom hands on it, the custom third-party hands, which actually fix the issue. And then I also find him quite small. He's small for a leader class. This figure could almost cut it as a Voyager. It's kind of in an in-between stage of a Voyager and a leader, and therefore paying leader prices you feel a little gypped on it, and just in general he would have worked better slightly larger. I did pre-order the third-party version of this figure that has a few new design features, but it's mainly the same thing, just with a couple updates. It's much larger and it has better paint, so I'm very excited for that one. But it's just a shame that I needed to buy that third-party figure to get the proper Blackout. Ninth place is going to go to Lockdown. This is a pretty decent figure. I love the car mode. The robot mode is quite nice. I like a lot of the detail in it, and it's a million times better than the last one. My biggest issues with it is that he has quite a large backpack, and it comes out quite far from his back, as well as he's just too small. I mean, the last one was too small, and this is a slightly larger deluxe, but he really needs to be a Voyager. Like, I don't understand the confusion here. He's just as tall as Optimus Prime, and the typical scale for Hasbro, some of the leaders are off, but the typical scale for Hasbro is like Voyagers should be the tall figures, like Megatron and Optimus Prime, essentially. So this one's just way too small. He needs to be a Voyager size, and this was a clear opportunity to do it, and they missed it, which is a shame. Taking that 8th spot, we have Stinner here. This is a pretty decent figure. I do like it. It's a figure that we never got from Age of Extinction, which is just crazy because it would have been such an easy one to do. But I'm glad we're getting it now, and it's not just a repaint. It is a completely new sculpt. I'm a fan of how the chest transforms. It's very unique, and it looks very unique too. Not just the way that it transforms, but the look of it too, which is cool. It's not just the front of the car or just some random piece that comes up. It's actual pieces from the car that have been formed together to form a chest, which I think is really nice. The head sculpt's quite cool. My issues are like the arms. The arms are a little hollow, and the way that his weapon is transformed is interesting, but it doesn't look that great, to be honest. But I like the idea behind it. So overall, this is a quite a nice figure. Nothing like mind-blowing, but it's pretty good. It's better than I'd expect them to do for Stinner. Next up, we have Bumblebee from the Bumblebee movie. This is the only Bumblebee that I purchased from the Studio Series line. Just didn't have interest in the other versions. I have too many of them. However, his design in this new movie, is very different, so I wanted this one. And this is a fun figure. The transformation's pretty fun. The design is pretty nice, and it's cool to see them do one with a lot of round pieces and round soft edges, which is how his design is in the film. More G1 type of inspired design. The car windows are a bit big, which is unfortunate, but I have to say they really nailed the legs. The legs are pretty great, and then the arms are pretty concise and well done. Again, not an amazing figure, but quite well done. Next up, we have Jazz. This is my newest addition to the Studio Series collection. Figure-wise, he's pretty decent. It was one that I was never too, needing to have. I wanted it in my collection, but I didn't need it right away. So I waited, was able to get it for a great $12 price on Amazon. And when the figure came in, it's quite good. It's got a nice design to it. It's very accurate to the film, I feel. My biggest issue with it is the backpack. It's just a big square backpack, similar to the Lockdown issue, which is a shame. But the rest of the figure is really spot on. The articulation's quite good. I like some of the design aspects with the hands, the weapon, and the head. And then his size is a good thing and a bad thing. He's just so small that you feel like you're not getting much. But it's basically the same thing with Bumblebee and Dropkick. But with him, it's quite accurate, to be honest. Bumblebee and him are small, especially the movie Bumblebee, the Bumblebee movie Bumblebee, and then Jazz. They're supposed to be very small. So although it's a shame that they're so small, it's accurate. So it's hard to complain about, to be honest. In that 5th spot, we have the Voyager Revenge of the Fallen Optimus Prime. This is a figure that I find interesting, to be honest. It has some neat aspects to it. I like the paint. Well, I don't know if I like the paint. Here's the thing. I have just so many Optimus Primes that just different is good in my eyes. And this figure has some different things, with the paint being one of them, using that really dark, metallic gray silver metal type of look is interesting, which I like. Again, I don't know if it's my favorite choice, but it's new, which makes me enjoy it. Some of the design aspects are quite cool. He does have a bit of a backpack. It's nothing terrible, but it is there. And his articulation is out of this world. His articulation really saves him, to be honest. But again, we've had a million Optimus Primes, and a lot of them are quite good. So this one is good too. I definitely categorize this as a good Optimus Prime figure, but it's not the best Optimus Prime that I've ever had. But it might be one of the best Voyagers, if not the best Voyagers. So definitely deserving a high spot on this list. Crowbar is going to be the next spot here. This was the first one that I purchased from the Studio Series line. I absolutely had to get this one, was super excited for it, and it didn't disappoint. I'm actually really happy with it. I thought it was going to reuse more of the crankcase parts than it ended up using, or, well, they called them Berserker, but basically crankcase. So that was great to see. I was very happy to know that it had a lot of new design parts, and the new design parts work really nicely. The dreads are very cool, and they're very unique, too. That's something that we don't really see often. I like the feet a lot, and then the face sculpt is really spot on. My only issue is the paint. I'm not a fan of like the orange that goes into the hands, and then the red highlights are interesting, but they're a little obnoxious. I did repaint this one and make it more accurate to the film, but the paint is really the only issue about it. It's a really nice sculpt from a character that we never got a figure from, and I'm just super happy that we finally do have a figure of him. Taking that bronze spot, we have Starscream from the original Transformers movie 2007. This is quite a nice figure. Again, just like some of the other ones like Bumblebee and Optimus Prime, we had a million versions of him, but this one is done really nicely. I dare say that it's the best Hasbro Starscream figure that we have. Maybe the leader one's the only one that could compare it to him. But this one's really cool. And one thing that I love about it is that it's movie one. That's something that we don't see often at all. Really, we only have the original Starscream from that movie, that Voyager, and that one's way off. You know, especially with the hands are just ridiculously off. So to have one that's accurate, that doesn't have the tattoos and represents the first movie is really cool, and something that I didn't even know I wanted until I saw it and owned it. Once I had it in hand, I was like, oh, this is awesome. And it really ties in my original Decepticon team collection a lot better. So I'm happy with this one quite a bit. It's really great. It has a great look to it. It's very accurate to the film. And he does come with a weapon, which I think is very cool indeed. So great figure, and one that I didn't even quite know that I needed until I had it, which is sometimes really special. Talk about not knowing that you needed it until you had it. We have Grimlock, the leader version from Age of Extinction, as number 2 on the list. This is a figure that really blew me away when I saw it in person. When I saw it on the shelf and on display, I thought, oh, that's cool that they're doing Grimlock. I like the Dinobots from the original G1 show, to be honest, but I hate them in the movies. I really hate them in the movies. So I wasn't excited for this one whatsoever, but seeing it in person, it actually looked really impressive, and his size was much larger than I expected, especially to see how much taller that he is than Blackout. So that was something that was really cool, and getting it in person, it is great, and it's just such a huge improvement over the original one. Color-wise and design, like, it gets everything right. It has a great proportion to him. I love the feet. I think the head sculpt is amazing. Both the robot head and the dinosaur head are killer. They're absolutely perfect, which I really love. There's lots of cool little sharp little pieces coming off of him, and then the paint is awesome. He's done in different tones of gray, and it has this metallic, like, greenish silver that's been washed into it and given like this scraped up look, which is just awesome. I absolutely love the look of this one. It was very close to being my favorite figure from the line, and what's funny is, character-wise, he's probably my least favorite character in this entire line, but they just nailed the figure, and it was a figure that desperately needed an update too. It's not like the Optimus Prime or the Starscream where they improved on already good toys. This one was a terrible toy that they just knocked it out of the park with, which is really important, and I know for Dinobots fans, movie Dinobots fans, this is definitely a big win for it. It makes me want to see what they would do with some of the other movie Dinobots as well, which is very special. And the number 1 spot, which I would have to say is my favorite Studio Series figure released from this line, is going to have to be the Voyager class Megatron from Revenge of the Fallen. This was a really cool figure, and one that really is just top-notch. It's something that needed an update, which is funny because Revenge of the Fallen is usually considered the best toy line from any of the movies. So it's funny that that toy line would need an update on a figure, and that they would be able to update the figure in such a great way, because they've done both Voyager and Leader class from that movie, Bumblebee, and both of them are good, but they both by far have their downfalls, and this one just fixes them both and just is the perfect figure. First of all, he's big. This is a nice, chunky, big figure. He's the tallest Voyager on this list, and I think he's taller than Blackout, or at least close to it. Not as tall as Grimlock, but he's very tall, but not only is he tall, but he's very chunky and bulky. They nailed this guy. They got his hands right, which a lot of the figures get wrong. They got his feet right, which a lot of the figures get wrong, and he's just very compact and concise. He doesn't have a big backpack, which was the biggest issue, other than the color, on the original Voyager figure, original Voyager toy of this character, and this one just nails everything. It's great. It's really perfect, and it's just a solid Transformer all in all, and it's Megatron in what some of people's favorite design for him. I'm a big fan of this design. I don't know if it's my favorite, but it's certainly very unique, and I think that it represents the movie Megatron at least. So I'm quite happy with this. I think it's a wonderful figure, and yeah, in total, it definitely is what I would consider to be the best figure from the Studio Series this year. So overall, I'm actually really happy with the Transformers Studio Series line. They've really produced some cool figures, and even if the figures have some downfalls, I'm just so grateful to be able to get some of the characters that I never thought would get an update, and I love to get characters I never thought we actually get. You know, it's been great in that sense, and the future looks just so bright for this series, as they have so many really cool figures coming out, like the Constructicons, and Bone Crusher, and Jetfire, and the new Megatron, the Leader Class one, and of course, how can we forget Devastator? So I'm thinking that next year's list, when I do the ranking for 2019, I think it's going to be pretty awesome, and I really can't wait to see where Devastator is going to rank on that list, I must say. So overall, really enjoyed this line as a whole. Some great figures, some disappointing figures, but overall, I think mostly great figures, and yeah, I cannot wait to collect them for next year. I'd love to hear what you guys think of my ranking, as well as I'd love to hear your guys' ranking, how you would rank them, your least favorites, your favorites, all that, and oh yeah, overall, really enjoyed this series. Let me know what you guys thought of it, and thanks so much for watching.